I don't like when I record myself. I don't like looking at the tiny little camera hole that I'm supposed to look at. In a way, I'm making eye contact with you, but it's awkward for me to look at this tiny little fucking hole up top. So hence why I look at the screen more so than anything else. Anywho, welcome everyone to a very bored Friday night at the loser household. I've been recently going on the Dungeon Synth Archives playlists live streams I've been going on pretty recently, and someone requested I do like a second video of this. I forgot what his username was, but the first video was like 34 minutes, I think. I don't know how long this is gonna be. I looking back on it, I don't like that video that much. I think what did I talk about? I talked about Trollmon of Eeltupberg. I talked about Secret Stairways, Solanum, and Gothmog, and all those guys. Wearing my Gothmog sweater right now that I got. And I don't know. I was looking up stuff. I think I was looking up Uruk-Hai releases on RYM, and I mispronounced the word Marshall like 50 times, said marital instead, which is really funny. Marital industrial, or marriage-based industrial music. But besides, I mean, I don't know. It's not the best video, and it's hard for me to talk seriously about genres, especially a genre like this, where I'll easily come off as a fucking poser piece of shit who doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about. But I do like the music, so fault me for liking certain styles and genres of music and wanting to tell people to listen to stuff, because there's one thing that I do like doing. It's recommending people music, because it's wonderful, it's nice. Let me readjust this camera so you can take a good look at me. I don't have to readjust myself all the goddamn time. Let's talk about summoning ripoffs, because I love summoning ripoffs. I feel like I've talked about it multiple times before, but I love bands that are inspired by summoning in a way. These releases in particular might be inspired by them, or historically speaking, the band might be inspired by these guys. But overall, they're within the realm of like fantasy-based black metal stuff. One album that I want to talk about real quick is Orgy by Bachus. This is definitely a little bit summoning core-esque, without any guitars. It's synth, vocals, and drums. And I absolutely love this fucking album. I think it's like 28, 29 minutes long. Great little EP. So that's that's basically Bachus' Orgy. Another release that's was it released this year, I think. Early this year. Stronghold Guardian's Eastward. I believe it was made by the guy behind Grail Knight. I could be wrong on that, but they're both very summoning-esque. Stronghold Guardian, Eastward, that is a fucking amazing album. So if you want more vocal-based dungeon synth, then check out Eastwood by Stronghold Guardian. I believe he also released an EP this year as well. Check out the full length too. Another release that I want to showcase is Arrival of the Dragon Lord by Valar. Another great fantasy black metal album. I believe I also have Valar split with Uruk-Hai, which is a fantastic fucking split. Very high quality. I'm going to talk about high fidelity in a bit, because people seem to be split on that style of music. But by high quality, I mean it's really fucking good, not like fidelity wise. But Arrival of the Dragon Lord, I believe this is on Elven Witchcraft. It is on Elven Witchcraft, yeah, which is a great fucking European label from the late 90s to early 2000s. They have that really fucking amazing compilation, Chronicles of the Elven Witchcraft, that is a white whale for me anyways. I fucking love that album. One of my favorite compilation albums of all time, regardless of any style of music. But Valar is one of the big heavyweights within that sort of scene of like late 90s fantasy black metal. I mean, who else was there within that sort of like small, tiny hinge besides summoning? Anyways, I guess there was Herazire and Enid. Enid I mean, their 1997 EP is a fucking amazing. The self-titled EP that uses "Idols of the King" as an album cover. But I think all the other releases since then, I'm not really that huge on. Herazai only had 2 albums. Valar, I think, stopped around 2004. But all the releases, in my opinion, are really fucking solid. So yeah, Valar, Arrival of the Dragon Lord, to me, anyways, is their best album, best release. But besides that, I think their end on the Uruk-Hai split's called To Whatever End. I think that was actually their final release, and that in itself, it was a really fantastic little album. So those are a couple of bands, couple of albums that remind me a lot of summoning. Oh, and I have this, which is blatant summoning core, is Emyn Muil. It's a fantastic fucking album. Emyn Muil in general are really fucking great in terms of rip-off summoning bands. In terms of bands that have come out this decade that have ripped off summoning, they're number 2. Number 1, of course, being Kaladin Brood, but Emyn Muil's is fantastic summoning rip-off core. Really, I can't recommend Emyn Muil enough, especially that second album of theirs, their latest release. I'm not really that huge on their first album, by all means. Also, another one that I want to talk about, the Druadan albums by Elffor that came out, 2017? Was it? I think one of them came out last year, and the second one came out this year. I could be wrong on that, but the Druadan albums are really, really great, consistent, no-nonsense pieces of dungeon synth, very coherent, very... What's the word? Contemporary pieces of dungeon synth. They're very straightforward releases of epic fantasy ambient music. But the reason why I put them in this category, I guess, is because, well, a lot of Elffor's albums, stuff like Son of the Shades and whatnot, they're very summoning-esque in a way. His recent album, he released a new black metal album not too long ago, actually. I think it was like a month ago, too. And that's a fantastic fucking album. I wouldn't say it's a summoning ripoff, but it's still really fucking fantastic. But going back to these, the Druadan albums, there's not really much to talk about in terms of like uniqueness within this music. It's very safe forward. I guess I wouldn't say safe, but when you think of dungeon synth, you can easily listen to these 2 albums and listen to it, and it's like, okay, yeah, this is definitely what the genre is all about. There's no gimmicks. There's nothing like too new or too fresh. It's just very consistent and very well made within the genre. And then what are some other releases I want to talk about real quick? Well, I do have this, Age of Legends by Galdur. In a sense, I guess it's kind of a bit of a ripoff. I don't know. It's a far stretch. There's definitely an influence in there for sure. At the end of the day, it's epic ambient music that's loosely inspired by The Lord of the Rings, I believe. So I believe it is. But I think Galdur is really great in terms of high fidelity, high quality dungeon synth in that sort of sense. Besides that, let's talk about this one as well. Old Serpent's Lore, I'm gonna look at the album titles a lot on the releases because I'm terrible with remembering names. I'm terrible with remembering names, and I am even worse when it comes to pronunciation of names as well. But Old Serpent's Lore, this is that came out this year. I believe it was made by VKaos, who, if you guys don't know who VKaos is, fantastic black metal and dungeon synth artists, probably well known, in my opinion, he's well known for the Druadan Forest releases. If you haven't listened to Druadan Forest, that's a fantastic summoning ripoff band. I mean, his early, late 90s releases, there's influence by them, but ever since that sort of resurgence of the project, I think, was it 2016, he sort of re-emerged with Druadan Forest. They're pretty blatant summoning ripoffs, but they're fantastic. They're fucking great. And Old Serpent's lore is very high quality and high fidelity in terms of a dungeon synth album. This sounds like a soundtrack to some sort of frolicky fairy movie, and that kind of, people seem to be very split on high fidelity and low fidelity ambient music when it comes to this genre. And it's weird. Like in some aspect, I understand the appeal of low fidelity-esque music, but there's something that feels inauthentic to them for them to be released, especially in the past couple of years. I don't know why. I mean, and this doesn't really have to do with low fidelity versus high fidelity at all, really. Rather more, there's just releases within the 90s, and call me a 90s kid, you know, like, back in the 90s. But call me a 90s kid if you will. But there's something special about those 90s dungeon synth albums that feel a little bit more special, rather more than an album that came out this year. Rather more in the past couple of years. I feel like a lot of that has to do with the overabundance and the availability of this type of music. And by all means, there is quality control within the genre, you know. Thank goodness there is, or else we'll have too much shit rise to the top. But at the same time, it's like there's still way too much within it. There's such an overabundance of the music. Rather, if you find some tape that's from the Dungeon Excavation blogspot, or that the Asmodean Coven people have found, you know, and it was released back in like 96. It's like, it's the only release ever by this artist, or some nonsense like that. It feels special in a way. It's like, wow, I can't believe this thing is finally resurfacing after all these years, rather than some release that just was hastily made in a week and was posted on Bandcamp, and people were jerking off endlessly about it as it has like a flavor of the month album. I don't know. At the same, I'm not necessarily hating on the genre nowadays, because I'm still buying new releases every once in a while. But I do have a tendency to lean towards the older releases more so than newer releases, because, and it's like it. I don't like to take age and year in effect when subjectively talking about music in my own opinion. But there's just something a little bit more special when an album was released in 1998 rather than 2018. I don't know. That's how I kind of look at things. But going back on high fidelity and low fidelity, there seems to be a lot of people that seem to favor more in the low fidelity aspect. They don't want to make it sound like a soundtrack based. They don't want to make it sound like some soundtrack to some movie or some AAA video game. They wanted to make it sound like an actual synth every once in a while. Then they wanted to make it sound like an actual I'm going to say low fidelity again, but like, you know, quality, recording and production quality wise, they want to make it sound like it came from a cassette tape back in the 90s, if anything else, or a soundtrack to an old forgotten RPG game. And I also don't like. I don't like it when artists sort of play off that aspect. It's like, it's sort of like a soundtrack to an RPG game. I feel like I've done that comparison with a few releases online. It's like, this sounds like this. I mean, you listen to something like Middle Ages by Caduceus. Great fucking album. And it does sound like, I've described it before as what would happen if a black metal musician did the soundtrack to Donkey Kong Country. And it does sound like that by all means. But when artists deliberately have to to sort of like advertise their albums as that sort of like, you could use this as the soundtrack to your Dungeons and Dragons campaign. It's like, to me it feels forced. It's why I don't like guys like it's why I don't like a lot of like chiptune based dungeon synth or any of the stuff that's released by HDK, where they seem to play more on the aesthetic, not on the black metal side of things, but more on the nerdier side of things. And it's like, we don't need more nerds in this genre. Which I don't know. That's a terrible way to put it. But I don't know. It's like, you just gotta respect the darker, harsher side of the genre more so than sort of commercializing yourself and advertising yourself as this nerdy genre for nerds and geeks to listen to. You know, like I don't know. It's hard to put it in that type of sense, but I don't like chiptunes. Get the Anamanaguchi shit out of here. But going back to the playful lo-fi side of Dungeon Synth, I guess this is a lo-fi release, but it's a very playful release, very cheesy release in a way. Very cute album, in my opinion. In the Frightful Gaze of the Pumpkin Witch by Pumpkin Witch. Got this for the Halloween season this past this fall season. When Halloween came, I was blaring the shit out of this fucking album. I love this album. Really cute little album overall. Which is a really weird thing to say about an album that sort of goes back and forth using its synths and noise, and it's got some nice little samples too. If you want something spooky, the Pumpkin Witch albums are really fantastic. Both of the Pumpkin Witch albums, and I can't wait for next year. Hopefully there better be another Pumpkin Witch album in 2019. Have some sort of Halloween trilogy, a Pumpkin Witch trilogy. But by all means, if you want to listen to spooky Halloween-based dungeon synth music, you should check out Pumpkin Witch. Go to pumpkinwitch.bandcamp.com. Check it out. They're fantastic releases. Talking about holiday-based dungeon synth music, Christmas is coming, and I know there was a dungeon synth-based album on Krampus. I think the artist was called Krampusnacht. Fantastic fucking release. The Krampusnacht is really tight. So if you want to listen to Christmas-inspired dungeon synth music, then by all means, check out Krampusnacht. Another fantastic release, another great old-school release. Quickly talk about this one. Strahd's Possession by Corvus Neblus. This is a recent compilation reissue. Believe back in the late 90s or so, I want to say late 90s or 2000s, and it was also released on Elven Witchcraft back then. What was it? Ancient Recollections, who I believe also did the Secret Stairways reissue of Enchantment of the Ring back in 2016, 17? I think 17. But, great fucking album. One of the things I do like, and this kind of goes, I guess, in the nerdier side of the genre, is that it has its own character card. That's pretty fucking cool. I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty fucking cool. Neblus, race half elf, class fighter/mage, alignment chaotic neutral. Pretty fucking cool. But overall, if there's any old school release that I'd like to recommend, the Corvus Neblus albums, both of the Strahd's Possessions, both chapters 1 and 2, pretty fantastic overall. I believe you can still get this tape for about, I think Discogs is selling it for about $10 to $15. I think there are some people who are selling the old EP releases for that price too, maybe a little bit higher, who knows. But it's good to have it as a compilation tape. Some albums work better as a compilation album. I remember listening to this way back when, actually, like a few years ago when I first started getting into the genre. And frankly, I didn't really enjoy both of the releases separately at the time. But listening to them together definitely helps immerse yourself in that atmosphere that they try to put in. That just works sometimes with a lot of artists in general. I'm gonna show another compilation. Remembrance of the Lone Enclave by Old Tower, another great compilation album of some earlier tracks. And Old Tower recently released another compilation release of, I think it's Spectral Horizons and another album. I'm forgetting the name of it, but great compilation album. And again, like I said, and I'll go to Old Tower a little bit, but like I said, some releases work a lot better as compilations more so than like EPs or full-length albums. There's a great 8-hour long compilation album. Courage is Found were in Unlikely Places, I believe, by Uruk-Hai. And it's like, again, it's like 8 hours fucking long. It's like 10 to 12 CDs. But it's so great. It's a fucking fantastic release. It really is. If you can sit through an 8-hour long compilation album, you can put it on in the background or you can go to sleep with it. But albums like that, compilations like that, when you are able to easily compile or accurately compile an artist's work into a huge piece like that, and coincide and sort of like connect each release together is such a fantastic little thing. And Old Tower, his older works, especially with this album, where it feels, I mean, you can definitely tell it's a little bit, it's his earlier stuff, for sure, and it's not, you know, the stuff that he's cranking out nowadays, which feels weird. You know, I wasn't the biggest fan of Stillery Wisdom when it came out. You know, it took a few listens for me to really, really somewhat appreciate it. I think I will. There's the frantic sort of conspiracist side of me that believes that he only got signed to Profound Lore because Bandcamp ran that Dungeon Synth article a while back, and it had that album cover of his that came out, of, you know, of that black hooded old tower, and the building, the spooky little house in the background of him standing very menacingly and whatnot. And, you know, it's a very great album cover by all means, and I think some major label heads were looking at that and it's like, ooh, this is spooky. Let's sign this person. Let's get in on this dungeon synth boom. I feel like Bandcamp is using dungeon synth sort of as a research genre, and a lot of these artists are guinea pigs and lab rats. I feel like they're using this genre as a stat tracker, and I don't like that aspect of it. But that's the conspiracy side of me. I kind of see it in a way. I feel like there are some executives that are looking at this like, let's see what happens if we talk more about this micro genre of sorts, this small little niche genre that came out during the 90s. Let's see what happens if we talk about it more and see if we can add on to it more and more and more. Because they even released a second article, I think sometime earlier this year. I won't be surprised if they release a third article to sort of like further push this genre deep into the throats of everyone else. And I don't like that overexposure of music in a way. But at the same time, what was I saying? Old Tower, yeah. It's a good album. It's a good little compilation release. Anywho, I feel like half of this video is me talking about my opinions on certain overexposures within the music scene, and less about recommending styles of music. But it's best to get these off my chest. Pale Night, Aims of the Sages. Another recent 2018 release. Very awesome fucking very awesome little release. Again, nothing out of the ordinary, nothing crazy, nothing experimental. Very consistent, very well done, very coherent. Just a nice little ambient release that you can put on in the background. So that in itself is great. Yeah, that's the thing about dungeon synth, is that it's one of the genres where, I mean, you can experiment yourself within it. I think and I was gonna say, I think the farthest you can experiment with it is the dungeon noise artists, but you can do so much more than dungeon noise, and by all means, that's not the farthest extent that you can go. But in terms of stuff that everyone is like down to fuck with, I think dungeon noise is definitely like the farthest that you can really experiment with that genre for everyone to really appreciate it. Or else, if you experimented a bit too much, then I think you might be dipping your toes in waters that no one really wants to dip their toes in. With that being said, I mean, I did talk about the recent Sarian Myth album, and that has loads and loads of other outside genre influences. So you just have to be really good at implementing other genres within dungeon synth, because in my opinion, I think dungeon synth is a very good base genre to evolve yourself with in terms of sound and implementing other styles of music within that sort of style. I like putting drone music in dungeon synth because I think those complement itself. I think those complement itself pretty well. But I think anything else would be a bit odd. I don't think you can do something like glitch in dungeon synth. I feel like that. I mean, I feel like someone has done glitch in dungeon synth, but it'll come off as pretty fucking stupid. Or like ambient techno, and I know someone did like some sort of like techno dungeon synth release, like an ambient techno-esque release, and it was very it was whatever. What else do I have to tell you about? Sequestered Keep. This is my first Sequestered Keep album physically. I feel like I really should have gotten more. But Sequestered Keep, I don't know who the actual artist is behind all these albums, but like Sequestered Keep and Fief, I know they're connected. I think Galdur might be connected to this as well. Whatever it might be. No, I don't think it is. I'm definitely wrong on that. But I know Sequestered Keep and Fief are connected. As an artist, and that's one person doing these two phenomenal albums. The recent Fief album came out not too long ago, actually, which is pretty nice. I've been hearing some okay responses from people. I think it's the best Fief release since 2. It's a lot more folkier than usual, though. There's a lot more elements of like more medieval folk stylings of music rather more than dungeon synth, but it's a pleasant little release by all means. It's not as great as 2, but I think in my opinion it's a little bit better than 3 by all means, but you could be the judge. I think Fief is a phenomenal little release. I think project by whoever does Fief and Sequestered Keep. Sequestered Keep, on the other hand, is again a little bit more. What's a good word for it? I don't want to say epic, but in a way, there's a little bit more going on with Sequestered Keep albums. Also, and there's a lot more Sequestered Keep albums too. It's definitely a lot more prolific when talking compared to Fief, Fief stuff, but. Yeah, Sequestered Keep, another fantastic, very consistent release. And if you want more just straightforward dungeon synth with a more nautical atmosphere, listen to Uruk-Hai. I believe Uruk-Hai is from Poland. I love Poland. This is the compilation release. I believe it's Water Tombs and what is it? Is it called Sea Synth Shanties? Luckily, it's a compilation release. Like I said, I listen to way too much shit, and I have troubles finding the actual names. It's a reason why I have an RYM, so I can easily catalog the stuff that I release. Sea Synth Ensemble. Sea Synth Shanties. But no, if you want like something a bit, definitely a little bit, epic atmosphere with a more nautical theme to it, Uruk-Hai is a very amazing artist when it comes to nautical-based dungeon synth releases. And again, I think I could be wrong, but I think they're from Poland. And I love Poland when it comes to dungeon synth and black metal. I can never not recommend Wojnar and Wojnar's first few releases, where he's like outside in the middle of the forest and he has like his arms like sort of like praising the sun, praising the Slav Polish lords up above. But great album. I respect the two countries that I look forward to most when it comes to ambient and black metal is France and Poland. So I always trust them when it comes to certain releases like that. I think that's really it when talking about these little albums and tapes. I guess there's a few tapes that I do have, but I'd just be copy and pasting the last 10 minutes of whatever I was saying when talking about certain releases. Like, I got the recent Fata Morgana album, which is a Mortis side project from the 90s. So if you enjoy Mortis, then by all means, check out Fata Morgana. If you haven't already, it's a fantastic little release. For a long time, that was one of my favorite Mortis albums, and then I started like listening to more and more of Era 1 Mortis, and it's like, yeah, no, I definitely fuck with Mortis Era 1 stuff more so than Fata Morgana. But at the same time, the Fata Morgana release is fantastic. I also got a couple of releases from Gondolin Records. But they're so dark. Like, I was trying to like take a picture of these, but it's like you can see the reflection of what I'm recording, for crying out loud. That's how dark it is. But this is Moth Tower and Ornatorpet. You can check both of these releases out. If there's any label that I'd like to recommend, check out Gondolin Records. They house a very wonderful collection of albums, including my album. Wink, wink, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. But you can Moth Tower and Ornatorpet. I would probably have said the same thing. Very consistent, very coherent, very no nonsense, no gimmick dungeon synth music. That you should check out by all means. And that's really all the releases that I have to showcase to you right now in terms of the world of dungeon synth music. I feel like there's a few more that I haven't shown. I mean, I don't have any other tapes regarding that. I think like the last two non-dungeon synth based cassette tapes that I got were What Ends When the Symbols Shatter by Death in June and Solfa by Asian Kung Fu Generation. Both very contrasting releases in terms musically wise. Yeah. But I think that's about it. 32 minutes. So yeah, there's another 30-minute long video of me talking about certain albums within the genre that you should check out, that you probably haven't checked out already. But yeah, that's about it, I guess. If I look like a mess, I know my hair is messy and look a bit tired. It's because I am. I've been sleeping a lot later than usual. I think I woke up at like 11 a.m. today, slept at 4. You know, I've just been a mess as usual. But until next time, hope you guys had a wonderful Thanksgiving and had a wonderful Halloween. And hope you have a good holiday season as well, if I don't see you till then. Bye-bye! Bye!